or do you have the?
I don't have.
All right, folks. How are you doing this morning? Great. Yeah? Great. Good, good. Well, happy to have you here joining us for this session. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be a little different. This is not going to be entirely listen to us ask a question. We're actually going to be somewhat interactive because our hypothesis is that to learn, one must be engaged in some way. So we're going to do a little game exercise in the middle, a game exercise that we hope you all can use. My name is Drew Jones. I am the co-founder and co-director of Climate Interactive, a think tank in the United States that grew out of MIT. And we have three parts to what we're doing today. The first is going to be Fabio Parigi, who is going to tell you about high-efficient stoves. So really get serious about what it actually takes on the ground in a real project to actually make life better for people and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. That's what this is all about, right? Making lives better for people and the world and reducing emissions and avoiding dangerous warming. Then I'm going to talk about some of the work that we've been doing with our accessible simulators in education, but also in the policy world, because as you may know, these simulators are actually used over in the negotiations in the other halls. And then my dear friend, Florian Kapmeier of Reutlingen University here in Germany is going to talk about his efforts to take this game and use it in the real world. So he has actually got this game integrated into education here in Germany to help people understand climate change, but again, how to make lives better for people and avoid dangerous warming in the long term, but also assess, does it work? We actually have some data to say, does this effort actually work? And he's going to share the scientific findings about the assessment. Along the way, we're going to have a little bit of fun, and I'm going to ask you to participate in a bit of a game that I hope you can carry forward. My dear friends, anything that I should add as an intro? Does that set us up right? Perfect, yes. Is that it? Yeah. That's it. Let's go. Okay, let's go. You ready? I give you Fabio.
Good morning, everybody.
Not that Fabio, the other Fabio. Yeah, give him a hand. There he is.
It's all about butter. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to share with you what is our work about and our experience on high-efficient cook stoves. So the outline of my presentation, give you a brief introduction on the topic, why it is important for us and perhaps for the rest of the world, a little bit of the objective, where we started. We started with the solar-based stoves, how we came up with an innovative design, high efficient, low-cost stove. We ran some simulations, some testing, our achievements up to date, and our goals by 2030. So as known, more than 3 billion people worldwide rely on biomass for preparing their food every day, mainly is firewood. This has a tremendous impact on the climate, forest preservation, oil erosion, and also on health. According to the World Health Organization, more than 4 million people per year die prematurely due to smoke inhalation. And also it has an impact on the waste of valuable resources, because these people walk averagely 1 to 2 hours a day to get their firewood, carrying 20 to 30 kg of firewood on their head. Mainly are young men, young women, and females, and this exposes them to other risks such as GBV, gender-based violence. According to UNHCR report, more than 50% of females hosting refugee camps have reported sexual harassment in the last 6 months while gathering firewood. So it's a serious topic that affects the environment, our health, and safety. So our objective, our goal is to tackle this phenomenon. I try to reduce the impact we are having on the firewood collection. So back in 2010, I met Professor Udai from University of Iowa. At that time, I was a young, naive grad student in the States. And he fascinated me about project they were doing in India related with the solar cooker stove. So I decided to join them on this project. And we went to Rajasthan, India, on the border with Pakistan, to deploy these very simple solar-based cook stoves. And we thought we made it, because people were liking it, taking pictures, and so on. But very, very soon, we realized we were failing dramatically. It was not a problem about technicality or cost. The problem was about culture. People that were not using it for 2 main reasons. First reason, they were shy to cook outside and show their neighbors what they were cooking. And mainly they're cooking water with some roots in it. And so they prefer still cook inside with the open fire with no chimney, so basically in a gas chamber. And also, another part was we were disrupting the cultural aspect of cooking. In developing countries, many families cook together around the fire. Women are taking care of children, they are working, they are making social activities around the fire. So if we are modifying that aspect, we are breaking centuries of history. So we understood our failure, so we had to go back and make a survey about high-efficient stove. The good part is that people were open to improve cook stove, but at certain conditions. And their indications were very clear. The cook stove must be cheaper than improved cook stove in the market. They must be robust, easy to be built and repaired locally, maintenance-free, work as a heater in cool weather, and the most important part, they do not have to have an impact on the cultural aspect of cooking. So we went to the local market. We bought all the stoves available in the market from $5 to $50. We test them in real-life conditions, cooking their food in their homes, recording data. And what we found out that among the many that had the highest efficient, of course, they were more expensive one, all of them had one grill inside. They have this simple insert that seems kind of magic. So we tested just a grill, and the results that we got were very, very promising. So we went back to the lab, we wrote some equation, ran simulation, optimized the design, and we came out with this simple metal sheet with a couple of holes that makes a difference. So we tested in the lab, back to the field, tested, and the result we got are very, very, very important. So I brought for you, just to show you what I'm talking about, is very piece of metal, $1 material cost, is the simplest, highest efficient stove in the market. This, how does it work? You place an insert inside 3-stone stove or in a horseshoe mud stove, whatever you have in your home, and you place the wood on top of it. This allows fresh air coming through and guarantees stoichiometric balance all along the combustion process. This part allows a traditional stove with this insert allows reducing 63%, wow. 63% of firewood consumption, 89% less black carbon emission, and increases 2.7 times thermal efficiency and power rating. It's very easy to produce, to install, to use, almost no maintenance, and it's low-tech and open-source project. We go around the world and teaching the people how to build it. So we're linking, no? We are sharing what we have learned and perhaps it grow. So we went back to Africa and started to sharing our knowledge, our understanding with the people, giving classes on the theoretical aspect, mechanical shop. We partnered with local technical schools, teaching students how to build them for their homes, and perhaps to go to local market to share and give some income. And also, we give mud stove construction workshops. This because mud stoves are way more efficient than tree stoves. Some countries already have the mud stove, so just the only matter just insert the Mewar Angithi. Others are still using the tree stone, so the mud stove is already an improvement. And then once we build them locally in the community with raw material, local forces, everything is local based. This is a key part of the project. And then we start to deploy them and giving classes. For instance, this also we have project going on in Ghana, distributed to local people, teach them how to use it. And the feedbacks we are having are very good. At the end of our work, we like to organize cooking parties. I'm Italian, so food is very important. And the first one we had in Kitui, Kenya, was an orphanage. More than 900 people participated. We had a hard time to taste all the food. It was basically boiled rice and beans. Since then, I cannot have them anymore. And so the day after, when we have to announce the winner, we were very surprised about the answer, the feedbacks from the population. I'm still wondering why. Perhaps for the first prize we give away a goat, and everybody was very happy to have it. The problem is I'm vegan, so it's controversial, but it was very well received. So, resuming, our achievement up today, we have installed 2,100 stoves in India, in Rajasthan, in Ghana, Kenya, and now we're starting a very big project in Cameroon. Up to today, more than 10,000 people eat every day from the stove. We are saving 4,000 tons of black carbon per year and saving 15 hectares of forest per year. Our team has spent up to now more than 2,000 hours in workforce, and we spend $50,000 US dollar in private fundings. So what we want to do with this simple device is, so our MTP, our massive transformative purpose, is to reach 1 billion people by 2030 with this affordable, scalable, locally built solution for the reduction of firewood consumption for cooking, create local jobs, and have environmental biodiversity preservation, gender empowerment. Nowadays, we are designing a sharing press machine, portable, scalable, low cost, to install some community this production facility so they can build locally and distribute locally. Why we're here? We are here to looking for new forces, new partners from different sectors, from the purchasing, procurement, construction, communication. Everybody has the skills that would like to join us. We are multinational, transnational teams from research and world, companies, NGOs, and foundations. We are a no-profit organization, and our target to reach 1 billion people in different steps. We believe it's possible, and we will make it. And please ask me some question at the end, or reach me if you have any further question. Before I leave the podium, I would like to introduce you the rest of the team. Dr. Saresh Rao, CEO of Climate Healer, the NGO based in Arizona, US, Professor Uday Kumar from Iowa State University. Then we have Jose Herrero from Comillas University, Madrid, Spain. Rosa Castizo, she's a former UN representative. Now she's our senior advisor. And we have here Kenneth Nana from Abibimman Foundation that I would like to thank for the support organizing this event. These are our partners, and that's it. Thank you very much for your listening. If you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you very much.
So we have a minute for any questions on clarification. Yes, in the second row, sir. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you had your hand up.
Please take the microphone because we are speaking.
almost there.
Thank you. Fantastic project, Jovin Hurry, Singapore. What is your revenue model behind all this? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. So our idea is to produce locally and sell the stoves. We have experience to give it for free, but as well known in the development work, when you give it for free, you have two outcomes. If it's too expensive, they go to the market and sell it and party. If it's too cheap, they do not give you a value. So we make this some survey about the perceived value of the stove. For instance, in Ghana, we have a window from $0 to up to $6. The average value is about 2.5, 2.6. This material costing $1. So the idea is to sell the stove according to how much the money they can afford. So maybe 50% at the front, and then every week or every month collect the money. To this pay back the investment and also to make some revenue to fund new models, new projects. We're talking about 11, 12 months payback time, to give you an idea.
My name is Faustina. I'm from Ghana. I have met Dr. Rao. Yeah, when he was in Accra.
Yes.
And we had a lot of discussion, and the project is going on well. I would like to suggest that the cook stove sector has moved forward. So let's move away from the mud stoves and rather use bent bricks for the main stove. Because the mud, because people have their stoves outside the house and do not usually keep them inside or have kitchens, when it rains, it becomes a problem, or they have to protect it all the time, so from the rain and that kind of thing. It might also crack and have to be replaced constantly. So it would be good to use bent bricks, no matter how, even in the household. This is being done in Peru and other places. Even if it's a household stove that will use the liner, it will be better than the mud. That's my advice. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your valuable comment. You are perfectly right. This is a comment that we received quite often. There is a matter of cost. Depend on how much you can spend on the stove. If you are at the bottom line, what you are aiming means you are making average $1 per day and you have 10 kids. Bricks are definitely more durable, but they have a cost. So it can impact a lot on it. If you can spend $2, $3, $4 definitely is one solution. In Kenya, we had some tests with the bricks and they work just fine. We build locally the bricks with a pressing machine, just taking dirt with some little quantity of cement and just press them. So you need to cook them. That's definitely way more durable. Just a matter of segmentation of the market, but thank you very much for your comment.
We will have time for more questions at the end. To our speaker.
Thank you very much.
Leave that there and step out. Yeah, you'll do it. You'll run. So, okay, folks. This works. So, will you join me in playing a very short game? Yeah? Okay. Think about how to enroll people, like all the people interested in these cook stoves, and the idea that we do need to address climate change and think about it globally. We have a way that we've developed called World Climate that uses this simulator, and so we would like to try this. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You all are going to be a microcosm of the United Nations negotiations over there, okay? So you are all the representatives in the world of the nations of the world. And the poorest countries of the world, the least developed, are going to be the people who are near the aisles. So unless you have a reason that you can't do this, please stand up and sit on the ground next to your chair. I'm serious. So, ma'am, would you mind sitting over here? There are 810 million people who don't have enough to eat every day. So that's you guys. So stand up. You guys are going to represent some of the poorest people of the world. And over on the edge, so we have some. All right, thank you, ma'am. You're doing it. Are you game? Will you try this? It's fun. You're with me. All right, thank you. So you all sit. This is going to be a 10-minute game. You represent some of the least developed countries. Anybody on this side are the most developed countries of the world. U.S., China, U.S., EU, Australia, South Korea, Japan. Over here, China, India, Indonesia, Mexico, South Africa, the fast developing countries. What we're going to do is say, I'm Antonio Guterres, and I'm asking you, will you address climate change? Will you try to get temperature, not 4.2, but down to this level by 2100? See this graph that shows 1.5 degrees here or 2. You are going to make pledges in order to get temperature all the way down to that level. Florian is handing out, when we play this for real, it takes an hour or 2 hours instead of 10 minutes. And these are the kinds of briefings you get from your national government saying, here is your position in the United Nations. So Florian's passing them out, but yeah, just hand them out and have people pass them around, Florian. We should get playing. What you're going to do is, I want you in the front to think, when are you willing to peak your emissions of greenhouse gases? What year? 2090, 2080, 2017, 2025, and then how fast are you willing to decrease those emissions? Simple question. So Florian, we could do it as 6 regions, but we're going to make it really fast. Let's do it as 3. And by the way, this simulator is free. It's in 5 languages. If you have a computer, it's called C-Roads World Climate. Go download it, play it for free. It's been used in 75 countries for this purpose. So, you are the rich countries of the world. What year are you willing to peak your emissions? Over here. Call out some years. 2025. Another one in the back, what do you think? 2030, 2025, 2030. 2020. Okay, 2020, 25, 2030. Let's say 2025 is in the middle. So hold on, before you hit tab, watch 1 second, and can you make this the individual, just the fossil fuel emissions? Okay, so here's what your emissions are before you do anything. I just asked you folks, rich countries, your emissions are expected to grow. You're still developing with coal, oil, and gas. There are some renewables, but your economies are growing. You're getting more efficient. So it's going up, up, up. If in 2025, so watch the red line right here as Florian hits tab, and it's going to run the model, all the equations. Did you see it move? The red line moved. And over here, we're not at 4.2 degrees, we're at 3.9. The new line is the purple line. Did this solve the problem? Did it help? Yeah, it helped. Okay, you folks, Brazil, China, Indonesia, Mexico, your emissions are expected, they've been growing strongly, they're expected to grow as the middle classification of so many people who are lower income, air conditioners and cars and bigger houses. What year will you peak your emissions? And note your goal, you got to get this down to 2 degrees, right? Effort at 1.5. 2030 or 2040. 2030, 2040, anybody else? 2030, 2030, 2040. 2025, 2030, 2030, 2040. Okay, 2032 is somewhere in the middle. Here comes 2032. So watch what happens. Before he hits tab, how much do you think the temperature is going to go down? A lot? 0.2 maybe? Okay, run it. Here we go. 0.2, it goes to 0.3. Very good. He's got a good carbon cycle in his head. Now we're at 3.6. This is better. Okay, folks, you are the most vulnerable to climate change. You are dealing with the impacts of it the most. What are you going to do? What year are you folks over there? You didn't cause this problem. These guys caused 74% of cumulative emissions. And yet, we still need you. What year? 2014. 2014. much of Africa, much of Asia, much of South America. What others? 2050. There is a lot of disagreement in the G77. You need a summit. What about you guys? 2050. Okay, what if 2050? See, these guys don't like that, but all right, here we go. 2050, watch right here. You hit click. 3.4 degrees. Okay, it happens that our job at Climate Interactive, besides giving this model away for free, open source in 5 languages, so go download it, Sea Roads World Climate, you can play with it. Besides giving this away, 80% of our job is to do the math on the pledges to Paris. So when the New York Times says, how much will the Paris Agreement help solve climate change? They call us, we say, here's what it is. It happens that this is almost exactly the number that has been determined over in the other halls. Climate Action Tracker is at a Potsdam PIC. They do similar math. They think the number is 3.3. We think it is 3.5. You have just recreated the state of the negotiations in 2013. That people are peaking emissions, we may get some dropping, but overall, this is where we're at. We need to get much further down to 2 degrees. All right, so what next? We need some more pledges. You guys obviously need to do better. How fast are you willing to reduce emissions, developed world? I'll just 5 years later. Yeah, how fast? 1% a year, 2%, 3%, 4%. How much are you going to reduce emissions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. When France went nuclear, they were able to reduce it 4% a year. 4, 3. He says 3. All right, let's say 3, and so 2030, 3%. Watch the red line come down. 3% energy transition, heading towards net zero. We're at 3.1. Developed world, how about you guys? 5% a year. Rapid decarbonization, 5% a year. Here we are at 2.5. These folks, how fast? 80%. Okay, that's 80%. Total would be about 4% a year. So let's say 4% a year. If that part of the world starts reducing 4%, we're at 2.3. So now, Florian, go ahead and type numbers. So that's how far you're getting with rapid reduction, with rapid decarbonization plans. But start changing the numbers. He just said 2032. He's changing develop to 3.5% a year. He's going to also change, what else? Just keep doing stuff. There you go, 4.5 in the developing B. But make this earlier. Let's make developing B much earlier, 2020. We need, as you can see, to be reducing emissions and capping much, much sooner than this. And now we're at 2.1 degrees. Deforestation matters as well. Florian, why don't you just make all of those 90? Of course, deforestation is an important contributor, but not as big as we think. Watch how little it changes. It goes from 2, it's going to go down, I think, 0.1. It is a contributor, but it is no silver bullet. We're now at 1.9. Also, we can pull more out of the atmosphere. So let's promote significant afforestation. And there we are at, if we promote significant afforestation, 70% of the effort, that number is the total effort as estimated by YASA, 80% and then 75%, and that gets us overall to 1.8. No, 90, we're at 1.8 degrees. Instead of heading there, we head to 1.8. Give yourself a hand, you got well below 2 degrees, and folks, get back in your chair. So give yourself a hand. Now, mind you, you feel the impacts of this. Florian, if you can go to sea level rise, when we play the game, imagine over a couple hours people playing this. And one thing that we like to do is show sea level rise. And when we have a scenario that is difficult, the people are on the floor and we say, well, imagine what would happen to, pardon me, ma'am, and we have a big blue tarp, Miami, what happens in Bangladesh, and sweep this over many places. There's Florian with his, we got a blue tarp. Imagine students on the floor as we imagine the different parts of the world, Shanghai, that are particularly prone. Amsterdam, exactly. All the places, a big blue tarp cast over people. The principle here is that research shows that showing people research doesn't work. Have you noticed this yet? It helps. We need to do research, but research shows that showing people research just doesn't work. So what we need to do is create visceral, interactive experiences that get people to actually test their thinking. There was a gentleman in the back, he had pretty good math. He said, it's gonna go down 0.2 degrees. But we have studies that show people don't understand what it really is required in order to reduce emissions significantly. We need to have interactive experiences like this. So if you have a computer right now and you're typing on it, Google C-Roads World Climate. C-Roads. Oh, great. Yeah, go there. That's great, Florian. Go there to the website, Climate Interactive, and it's C-ROADS. I think it's World Climate. It's C-Roads. So just Google, C-Roads World Climate, and just download the model, and there's a facilitator guide, all those sheets in 5 languages. Go play it with kids. It's been tested and played that's a map of the 74 countries where this has been played. So Florian, what I think I should do is switch to PowerPoint, and if you would take this, if you want to say stuff too.
No, it's fine.
All right. So as I mentioned, our main job is to add up all of the pledges doing that experience. So we have a model that also has 20 regions of the world. It's C-Roads, and if you're an analyst, you can use that version as well. 20 regions of the world. If you really want to be what in the US we call a super geek and run all the scenarios for everybody, you can, and you'll come up with graphs like this that show the uncertainty ranges, what will happen if the US is in or out, and then down at the bottom, you can see the 2-degree path and the 1.5-degree path. As I said, the media likes to cover this, and some folks may have seen an op-ed that we've developed where in the New York Times, you could select your own scenario on the online version of the New York Times to create your own. The Washington Post is very curious, for example, about how much the US matters. My president has pulled us out of the Paris Agreement, and 21% of avoided emissions come from the United States, and you would see that if you ran that version of the model, and this is the graph that the Washington Post showed. The other thing is that we find that decision makers want to create their own scenarios. So that exercise I just did, we did with John Kerry at his kitchen table before Paris Agreement and before Copenhagen. So did John Holdren, who's the White House science advisor to Obama. They want to ask their own questions. So in your own countries, take that last model and walk them through the same exercise. Don't make them sit on the floor. They don't like that. But walk them through the math of creating, or maybe you should, of creating that own scenario. So there's the name of it, C-Roads World Climate. Try it yourself. The other thing that we've been doing with this is that there's going to be a special report on 1.5 degrees. We got pretty close, didn't we? We got, in fact, we should do something else. You can see what it would take to get 1.5, right? Basically, what would need to happen to get 1.5 degrees in that model? Just call out. Yeah, what did you see would need to happen in that last exercise to get 1.5 degrees? Stop emissions even faster. So we have published, we just submitted, and we will be showing 3 scenarios. One of them with a significant amount of carbon dioxide removal. So this is a graph that shows, and there's way too much going on here, but emissions are the blue area, fall about 3 to 4% a year. This area down below is carbon dioxide removal. Direct air capture, bioenergy carbon capture and storage, biochar, mineralization, afforestation, natural and also technical carbon dioxide removals. The problem with it, we hit 1.67 degrees before 1.5. It overshoots. Also, it requires a lot of land, about a fifth of the cultivated land on Earth, that size, in order to deliver that much BECCS. For the energy, 1,200 nuclear power plants for the direct air capture. We would love to not have to do that. So we made another scenario where we didn't have those technical approaches. And we said, what would it take if we didn't have direct air capture and BECCS? And we have a scenario, unlike most of the other models, that says you can actually get 1.5 without BECCS. I'll say that again. You can have a scenario that has a decent chance of 1.5 without BECCS. Now, mind you, I've just increased my emissions reduction rate. Look at how fast that blue line is falling. It's falling incredibly fast, 7% for the developed countries, 8% for developing. And then we said, what if there was no removals? It's even steeper. It's 8 and 9% per year. These are incredibly fast reduction rates, but we wanted to say, technically it's possible. Plus, we would need to meet our NDCs 5 years early. You can read all of this in our paper. It's actually online. Come up here and get a card. I will send you the paper that lays all of this out right now. We think it needs to be explained to the world. However, as I said, if you want the BECCS, it takes a lot of energy. Deploying BECCS requires, well, I said how many? 350 million hectares of land, an enormous amount of infrastructure. But before playing all that, gosh, you hear all these numbers. Anyone feeling hopeful and happy yet in this session? How's the hopefulness and happiness from what I just laid out?
Better than at the COP.
Better than at the COP. Okay, well, that's good that at least there's somewhat hopeful and happy, because I want to show a little bit more about what it would take. So we have another simulation. So let's play another quick game. I'm not going to make you play roles, but this is a model called En-ROADS, and go Google it and download it as well. And it looks at oil in this red line, coal in black, blue is natural gas, green is renewables, bio, and hydro. Nuclear is in pink. And so and what you can do is make changes in energy efficiency and methane and population and consumption and carbon price. And oh yeah, if you point over there, that would help us a lot. So start calling out, what do you love? How are these countries of the world going to deliver upon the pledges that we just heard about? What do you think is high leverage? Coal, oil, gas, nuclear. What's your dream? Somebody just say something. Coal, solar, wind. Let's start with coal. What if we just put prices on coal? So watch the black line as I put a significant price on coal. Watch the black line come down. So it's going to drop. Boom. You see that? So what if instead of going up, it goes down? Now, mind you, we get more gas. It's a tightly coupled system. You get more gas, but temperature dropped all the way from 4.2 down to 3.8 degrees. You see the green line over there. We can accelerate the retirement even more. Watch the black line go down even more. Killing coal really helps temperature. I'm going to go back to emissions. This graph on the right shows emissions from 2000 to 2100. The green line would be emissions when you kill coal over time. The dream would be to get it, of course, to follow between the blue and the red lines. So here we are at 3.7. Let's do better. You said wind and solar. We're getting a good bit of wind and solar. What if we have more? We subsidize it. Watch the green line as we imagined it growing even more. And it pops up. Now, the y-axis changed, but you see you get a huge growth in overall wind and solar, and that drops us down another, down to 3.5 degrees. Most of the emissions are coming from oil and from natural gas. What do you like to address oil and natural gas? Yeah, over here I just heard something about electrification could help a lot with oil, particularly with oil. So I'm going to go over, it's a little buried in here, but what if we had aggressive electrification around the world? So watch that, see that green line is the share that is electric in the world. And what if that jumped up in 20, I don't know, 25, we started this, really, it started already. 40% of new vehicles in Norway are electric cars. 40%. I was there last week. It's amazing. Tesla's all over the place. So now we're a little bit lower. Let's get even lower with more action on electrification in the stationary sector. We're at 2.7 degrees. We have a world with wind and solar, less coal, oil, and gas. I really can't, I'm going to reduce this so we can see it just a little bit better. But we haven't done anything about energy efficiency that would really help. And we haven't even done emissions price. A carbon price can accelerate this much more. A carbon tax fee and dividend is what in the United States the Citizen-Climate lobby likes to call it. Get all the revenue, give it back to the people. Here we are at 2.5. We've talked about energy. What are we missing, though? What are the other gases that are pushing us from 2 up to 2.5? Methane. Down here in the corner, other gases. We need to make breakthroughs when it comes to cattle, when it comes to leakage from oil and gas, when it comes to landfills and waste, et cetera. So if we're able to reduce that and N2O and HFCs and F gases, we bring it all the way down here to 2.1 degrees. A little bit with reduction of emissions from deforestation and land degradation, and you get 2.0. There's no silver bullet. There's no silver bullet. In your head, you may think, oh my gosh, all we need is coal in China. All we need is wind and solar. All we need is methane. All we need is eating vegan, like on and on. We like to think this way. There's no silver bullet. It's silver buckshot. You just put together 9 different broad policy areas that would work at multiple levels. Add them all up, and it is technically possible to get to 2 degrees. And, as you can read in our paper, if you push it hard enough, it is technically possible to get down to 1.5. Direct air capture and BECCS and other CDR helps, but don't count on them. We don't know if these technologies are really going to work. If your basement is flooded, your first priority should be to turn off the faucets, not to reach for the mops and the buckets. Saw someone writing that down. So I'll say it again more slowly. If your basement is flooded, your first priority is turn off the faucets. Don't reach for the mops and the buckets, particularly if the mops and buckets to really work are imagined. Right, the technologies we're talking about with carbon dioxide removal are largely, at scale, imaginary. We know what wind and solar does. We know how to not build a coal-fired power plant. That is technically very, very clear. Don't build fossil fuel infrastructure. We know how to do it. Many of the other technologies are imagined at this point. I'm going to pause, and I'm going to look at my clock, because I really want to leave a lot of time for Florian to talk about the really cool things that he's been doing. I gave myself 2 more minutes. Cool. So we could show there are a lot of things that don't help, such as a new technology. Should I do that? Do you like that one? We had this interesting exercise where someone said, Bill Gates has been talking about how great new tech is. That is thorium fission. So what do you think if we had 0 carbon thorium fission come out of the lab in 2020? 0 carbon, half the price of coal. So we tested that.
It is gray here.
Watch, Florian, yeah, point at it. If it's gray, watch it leap up as we imagine a world with thorium fission. So watch the gray line as it leaps up and totally takes over the world's energy supply. Look at the temperature. 3.8. Emissions started departing from business as usual in 2050. The problem with the new tech is that it happens way too late. If it comes out of the lab in 2020, it commercializes over 12 years or 15 years. Then it starts avoiding coal, oil, and gas. this technology would not keep any coal, oil, and gas in the ground until the 2040s. We cannot wait till the 2040s. This is why we should not wait for innovation, R&D, and new technologies. We need to stop investing in fossil fuel infrastructure now if we want to reach 2 degrees. And this actually changed the messaging of him and some other advocates. All right. So that has been a blast from a fire hose of information. So thank you for your patience. A lot of this is written down on our website, but what's most important is that a lot of this analysis has been turned into games and tools, such as this game World Climate that I just played in a very short version. What you should do is you should go play it. One of the people who discovered this game, like you just did, 5 years ago? How many years ago? 8?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So Florian saw this and he said, this is cool. And he has done some amazing things. Both, does it work? Good question. And what can you do with it? So put your hands together, clap for Florian. Here he is. He's going to talk about everything he's done with the game. Here he comes. I'll find your talk.
So I played this with John Sturman, a professor at MIT, when I did it for the first time, and I was emotionally packed by it. And I thought, this is really important. This is really important stuff, and I need to get the message out there. So I have a business background, so climate change is not my actual background. So I digged into the topic, and I wanted to get to know more, wanted to get more about it, and I did. And then I was ready to play it with my students first, and it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and people were very engaging, and it was just fantastic. We wanted to get to know a little bit better what the impact is. So you've experienced it, and it is fun, it is engaging, but we wanted to measure how much is the impact. So we put together a team of a couple of people, and Eduardo is part of our team too. He's sitting there in the background. Yeah, this is Eduardo, a professor at the Instituto Tecnológico at Buenos Aires, and we are a team of a couple of people all around the world. And we measured the impact of more than 20 sessions with nearly 1,000 participants between September.
And one note on Eduardo: if you are in particularly Spanish-speaking countries and you want someone to lead your game, talk to the brilliant man in the white shirt who's standing right there after the session.
So what we measure is, and Drew said it in the beginning, he said, research shows that showing people research doesn't work. But what is this based on? This is based on the idea of the information deficit model, and that actually says that, well, we need to give people knowledge, so we showing them slides, and then they start to want to learn more and actually intend to act. So what does this mean? So you give them knowledge about how do global temperatures behave, how about water consumption, heat waves, species extinction, sea level rise, and on and on and on. And is this human caused? And there's the stock and flow question and the understanding of what Drew just explained of water flowing into a bathtub. Compared to emissions. So give people this knowledge, and then we think that this reduces the personal footprint, and because people discuss this with their families, and then they want to take action, and they have the desire to learn more. Well, here is a very short lecture of a colleague of mine, very good colleague of mine, doing a lecture and showing people slides in this classroom, and you see that this is just boring. So people looking at the watch, they can't wait until the session is over. And what you have just experienced is World Climate, where the picture is totally different. So here's the same group, and you don't hear the voices, but the guy is sitting there in the red shirt, he is actually playing President Trump, and everybody's hitting on him that he should actually engage more in doing more for climate protection. So you see that actually it is engaging people, and they really get into it, and this is just fantastic. Drew showed that we also show sea level rise, and what we do in the game is that we take a blue tarp instead of our jackets here, and move these tarps around above the people's head actually to make them feel how sea level is rising and how it feels if it's 1 or 1.5 meters above them. So, don't show this. So this is the original information deficit model, and we just saw it again, it doesn't work. There's a large information gap between what scientists say and what actually is perceived by the society. So it doesn't work. It's not working like this. So we enhance the model by including affect to it. So, and we measure this by hope and urgency. So hope is, and Drew asked you, so where's hope in the audience, right? So do we have hope, and hope or hopelessness and empowerment of people? And urgency is measured by worry and engagement and guilt and alarm and fear and personal importance on this. So we do find evidence that 83 of the people actually after the game want to act. And this is amazing. It's an amazingly high number. So they want to get out there and do something. And we do find high statistical confidence in measuring this. And the paper is submitted, and we're waiting for a reply on this. But the studies shows that showing people the research doesn't have an effect on intent to act and the desire to learn more. It's not more knowledge is leading to this. It's the affect. And there's also a reinforcing cycle between the affect and knowledge. So people really want to learn more, and they understand better if the emotions are actually touched. So I played it just yesterday with my students here. These are my 60 students of my bachelor and my master's class. Put them together in one room. We played it yesterday. I want to show you one email of my students that I received a couple of minutes after the game. He says, "Thank you so much for today's climate simulation activity. It had a massive impact on me. And now I'll be looking at what I can do as an individual to really contribute to decreasing the amount of CO2 pollution in the overall climate change." And this is an exchange student from the US, and he wants to take it back home to his peers at his university, and also wants to play it with his high school back in the US. So this is really great.
Yeah.
And the question is, does that only work with people who already have an intent or an understanding of climate change, or are well receiving on this? And, well, it's great. So 40% of US participants oppose government regulations, and among these, we do have statistically significant increase in knowledge, so understanding of climate change, the urgency, and the intent to act. So this is fantastic among these who actually oppose government regulation. And 82 of the participants opposing regulations in the US show gains in their motivation to combat climate change. So we do have an indication that, yes, it does work with also non-liberals in the US. So I think this is really fantastic. And I thought, how actually do I get a scale up of this game also in Germany? And I thought, well, I live in Baden-Württemberg, which is the state here in the southwest of Germany. And I approached the government, and it took some stamina, because sometimes the governments are really, it's really kind of slow. But I identified this person here, Achim Beule, who is the head of education for sustainable development in the Ministry of Education in my state. And I talked to him, and he loved the game. And we noticed that there are more than 100,000 high school pupils in our state from the 10th to the 13th grade. So just imagine if only a small percentage of these high school students actually play that game. What an immense increased understanding of the need to act right now is actually going on here. So here's the diffusion pathway that I actually envisioned of how I get this into the schools, and I'm going to lead you through it. So first one was, we need to make all the materials available for all the students. and the teachers. So all the materials were translated. So the simulator, the briefings that we handed out to you, as well as the slides. And we actually took the handbook, the facilitator's handbook, translated this into German, and had our minister signing it. And this was actually very important and very well received when I played it with the first group of teachers, because they looked through the document and said, oh, our ministry has signed this. This is really important, and she wants this to be done. I'm going to take it to my students. So this had an immensely important effect. I was surprised by this. So we thought that easy access is important, and the endorsement as an official tool. We know that combination with other existing sustainability curricula is important, and we're looking at this. So this started. The website was launched last month, and you see it here, the official website of the German ministry as the access point for the teachers. So they see this there now as a tool for climate change education, among the other tools that they have. Then we thought, okay, who are we going to train? So it's the sustainability multipliers. We need to reach first, so that if other teachers talk to them about it, they need to know first, right? So they need to know it. And then it's geography, biology teachers, and on and on and on. So I played it here with geography teachers, tough group, because they know everything about geography and question everything. And we had big discussions, and it was really great, but it was very tough to actually come down to the 2 degrees, actually. This is the game played with the sustainability multipliers, and they had a lot of fun and they loved it. So they actually said, we need to produce more materials. So they said, we need to come up with a plan and integrate world climate into the curricula and integrate it so that the teachers don't have to think about it, they just play the game. We also see the need for this is leading then to the teachers playing the game, and also teachers training each other. So I don't want to do this with all the teachers in my state. So they need to be doing it by themselves. And as a next step, and it has already started, we want to diffuse it to other German states and organizations. So I give you a quick overview of what we have achieved in the last month already. So the Federal Ministry of the Environment, very interested as an education tool. The Federal Environmental Agency is looking at it, also not for training students, but also for training themselves. Ministry of Education of North Rhine-Westphalia, the state in which we are currently in here in Bonn, they show interest actually to also play it with their high school students. And more, adult education centers of Reutlingen, Tübingen, Rheinfelden, City of Reutlingen, we've played it with 50 people 3 weeks ago. Greenpeace Germany, is that person here today? Mr. Hohn? No. So they're interested. My Climate, they played it with more than 500 high school students in the beginning of COP, on the Tuesday of COP. It's actually the largest World Climate Session ever, and they use Sea Roads Pro and use six regions. So this was the picture taken there. So it is getting started, and it takes stamina, but I think we already see some impact, and we hope that it's going to diffuse really fast. So overall, more than 750 events, more than 35,000 people played it in more than 75 countries. I think, and we think, now it's up to you. So check it out, Sea Roads, En-Roads, and World Climate, all freely available at www.climateinteractive.org and the website of the state of Baden-Württemberg. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
In the spirit of interactivity, we end our prepared remarks early because we want to know what you all think about the state of the world, the state of these negotiations, and what is relevant about what we discussed for making action out in the world, or anything that you're curious about, any questions that you have. So think of this as discussion. We could try more simulations if you want to try that, but also you may have comments or questions for any of the three of us. Yes, sir, in the front.
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, with regard to data, as
Hold on one second. Let's check. Can people in the back hear okay? Can you hear him? Yeah, they can hear. Great. Keep going.
With regard to data, they say garbage in, garbage out. So just along those lines, I would just want to know
Yeah.
what your data sources are.
Yeah.
If you're using the IPCC5 as your main data source, what's going to happen when the 6 comes out?
Yeah.
Thanks. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you want to repeat?
So I'll repeat the question. What he said was there's a saying in climate in modeling, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data input, then you're not going to have simulations that actually work well. And I take it as how do we build confidence in these kind of simulations, and how do we update them?
And your particular data source.
And our particular data sources. So let me talk a little bit about that. And I'll need to look around a bit, so be patient with me. It's not the first slide that's going to pop up here. The general approach, and I know is as many people know, there are these very large disaggregated models that drive the IPCC studies that are widely tested, and they share all of their scenarios. These are the RCP scenarios that people may know about from AR5. And so one of the main ways that we build confidence in our model is we say, well, they put scenarios into their models and they got temperature out. If our models are good, then we should be able to take the same scenarios, put them into our model, and get the same basic results as them. So this is the result of that. So look, and you can see their scenarios, and then laid on top were the results from us. So we basically got the same kinds of results as them. And then we check, okay, where are we in the error bars? You see that blue line over there, the dot. So we are within the ranges from the others. But we don't want to be the only ones interpreting this. So we found, when we built C-Roads the first time, a group of external experts and said, hey, is this model good for its purpose? The purpose being using it for decision makers. And these guys, including the late Steven Schneider, Klaus Hasselmann here in Germany, and others said, yes, it's good for its purpose. So with the data sources are the classics that we would use from the IPCC, but temperature had for temperature, and I mean hundreds. It's taken us, been building this model over 20 years. But those are not modeled, we don't drive it with those data sources. We actually create our own model and build confidence by comparing against others. That's the main way we do it. But probably more importantly, do you remember this? Like the moment when we were playing with the model and I told you, oh, your scenario created 1.8 degrees. Or where were we? We were at 1.7. And okay, so that's an interesting, very precise finding. 1.7? No model can say that the temperature will be 1.7. So what we do is we present confidence bounds. It could be lower or it could be higher. But more importantly, and when you're running this game and someone asks a question like that, you go under this area called assumptions and sensitivities. What if there is a number that is too high or too low? We are transparent with our assumptions. And all modelers should do this. We should be transparent. So if you think that the world will warm less if there's a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, there's a number. See that number, 3.0? That is an important number in the climate science. What if it's lower? What if it's 2.5, which is what some people think it is? What would the world be like? Then we bid at 1.5. Did you see it just moved? The temperature moved. So we test the sensitivity to different assumptions. It doesn't change your conclusions. You still need to reduce emissions a lot. You just do a little bit better. Maybe you don't need to reduce the little emissions as much if that is the case. Yes?
Do I need to stand up?
No, I think you're fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Drew and Florian, for your presentations. It's really awesome what you do with your C-Roads tool.
Thank you.
My name is Gustavo Arcinegas. I'm from Team Nijmegen University from the Netherlands. I'm interested in whether you have implemented C-Roads spatially on a map interface, or because I agree with you that you need to be interactive and to educate better students.
Yeah.
Especially in this context of climate change and emissions and the likes. So I wonder if whether you guys have implemented the game spatially and.
Have we implemented the game spatially? The answer is no. Yes. Next question. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but no, we haven't.
You got me there.
No, but we've made our model. Like, do you guys think about that at all?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe 6 teams of researchers around the world have adapted our model in different directions. It's beautiful what people are doing. All the equations are open source. We will give them to you. Please do that. Will you do that?
Yes, we have.
Okay, great. Oh, you have already?
Yeah.
With C-Roads?
Yeah, with C-Roads.
Oh, cool. Okay, well, keep doing it. We haven't done it. You've done it, so please do it and let us help you do it better. And anybody else who's thinking about an adaptation, please proceed, because this is open source equations. We will give you every equation or our API. Please go for it and meet us afterwards and tell us about the specifics.
Yeah, we have the game with us now, and we play it on a touch-enabled map table. So the idea is that...
Wow. Well, come up here and show us.
Oh, no, this is not the moment for this, but...
I'm joking. Okay, we'd love to see it. This is fantastic. This is the kind of collaboration the world needs. So thank you for doing it. And I'd like to hear more after the talk.
For sure.
Great.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments from others? Yes, yes.
Hi, my name is Sarah Greenberg. I'm a student at Washington University in St. Louis. I just had a question about some of the assumptions in the model. It doesn't make intuitive sense to me that just by increasing renewable energy, the temperature would decrease. So do you have an assumption that by increasing the renewable energy, you are decreasing fossil fuel energy? Or where does that
So,
come from?
the question is, wait, why would you build a lot of wind and solar? That doesn't necessarily reduce temperature. This is a very good point. And that first point is important for us to recognize. If we just really push renewable energy without making sure that the markets shift, we could have a world of a lot of wind and solar, yay, but still burn coal, oil, and gas. And it's only if you keep coal, oil, and gas in the ground that temperature is lower in the future. So, second part, yes, there is a whole carbon market and energy market in the model that says if suddenly wind and solar is cheaper relative to fossil fuels, you will build a little bit less fossil fuel. You will build more renewables. You will utilize more wind and solar and less renewables. But that's how energy markets work. However, you'll see that what really works is 2 approaches. One of them is encourage what we want, but more powerful is to discourage what we don't. Encouraging wind and solar is not as effective in my models as a carbon price which actively keeps coal, oil, and gas in the ground. It sounds like that's where you're headed. Yes, that is true. That is true. We need to do both, but it's more powerful to do the second. Thank you. I think next, yes, sir, over here. Maybe you could pass the mic all the way over there.
Thank you so much. My name is Tools&Climate from Nigeria. I just want to use this opportunity to tell my story with the C-Roads and the world climate. And by the way, I'm from Climate Aid Initiative, and so part of what we do is we create awareness about climate change and work with communities to build resilience to climate change. But my experience with the C-Roads, one of the challenges I had communicating climate change was that usually, like it was said earlier, it was always boring. You talk to people in the classroom, some are almost sleeping, and you ask them few hours or a day after what they learned from the last training, and they're like lost. They almost forgot what they learned. But so I was lucky enough to meet with Travis came to Nigeria.
Oh, great!
So he did a training for us on world climate, and ever since it's like it's the solution to the problem I've having before. I found it too very, very engaging. People are always very involved, and even after the training, they always want to open up more channels for me to train other people about it, because people are always so excited about it. And in my country, it helps to make climate change much more, relevant, because they see there is a tool that not only enlightens them, but gives them the power to know that every little action we do, whether for or against, it's actually contributing to climate change. Wow. So I find it very, very helpful. Thanks so much.
And just acknowledging all that you've done as an ambassador. And one note is that there is this role that we have of ambassadors around the world. And thank you for all that you've done to make that happen. Yes, over here. If you could pass the mic or hand, maybe you can just walk it over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jovin Hari. I have two questions. One, have you tried this on the climate negotiators or those helping them? And if yes, what has been the impact? Second question is, you said earlier that showing more research actually doesn't help. And what you do is to show more graphs, more charts, ups, downs, etc. This is the sense that I get. And my question is that the presentation on the measurement has stopped at the impact, at the intent. Okay, your survey says that, okay, these many people intend to act. My question is, if you are going to increase the viscerality of that experience, should you couple what you do with something else? For example, at the Momentum for Change booth, they had the VR goggles, and that did help in increasing that. And what is then the return on investment of your time in terms of putting in all this for eventually something that would lead into action and not stop, okay, I understand, and probably, as you know, how learning goes, it exponentially goes down. Thank you.
Wow, good questions. And I'm just let's just organize for a second. The effect on negotiators, but wait, dude, these are graphs. You said graphs don't work. Why are you showing so many graphs? Number 3, the intent, if you'd pick up that one. And then what is the return of investment on our time? So the negotiators, yes, the main use of these tools is with negotiators and those folks. So we did, before Paris, a 2.5-hour briefing for the Secretary General's climate change team with these tools where they ask over and over what-if scenarios. This is John Holdren, the White House science advisor. In the UN Climate Week just several months ago in New York, I had 6 top climate ministers using that same version that you just saw, trying to create 1.5, and they had many surprises. People don't realize what it takes. It works very well with top ministers because they're not thinking about these kinds of issues all the time. So it works very well. Use it there. The second one was research shows that showing people research doesn't work, but you're showing a lot of graphs. What's up with that? We didn't say that we don't need analysis. What we said was it has to be in the context of people being open to learning. Learning is a social phenomenon. Learning happens best from peers and in interaction from peers, with peers. So we need to have the graphs complementing the experience of people talking to each other. So don't throw it out entirely, just don't count on it alone. Dr. Florian, please talk about number 3, about this intent idea.
If I may add to the graphs.
Yeah.
So the graphs are really the graphs we've seen in throughout world climate with temperature and CO2 accumulation. They serve very well as a communication device, as a communication tool. So people start talking about it and negotiating and thinking about this. So this is actually, after having had all the experience in the negotiation and all the emotions going up, this is what they refer to, and then understand the situation better and then act in the game. So you are asking, you're only measuring the intent. What's going on then? You're totally right. We've only measured the intent so far, but this is already more than anything else we've seen so far in climate communication, so that people want to do something afterwards. In these lectures, so when I do a lecture on climate change, people walk out, my students walk out of it, and I've tried it, and they So what's next class? When is lunch? Let's go on. What are we having? What are we doing tonight? So there's no reflection. That we already see we intend to action, and that's what we measured. This is already a great step forward.
Yeah. And we're also, Eduardo, who was in the front row. Give another wave, Eduardo. There he is. So Eduardo yesterday proposed a follow-on study, which would be to have his students in Argentina research and call and email people who've played in the past and say, so 6 months later, what has happened? What has been the impact? And so that's some of the research that he's been talking about. But yeah, and then you said about return on investment of time.
Sorry, can I? Yeah. So I have a master student who's doing this with my students at my university. He's going back until 2013, reaching out to them and asking them, so what's going on? So we are actually addressing this, and we have initial insights already from one of our colleagues at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. So we are building on this. So we know that this is something we need to investigate further, and we're doing it.
And so for return on investment for us, so we're a 9-person think tank that has 2 other programs. We have gotten no money to do this. We spend very little time, so it's a huge return on investment. We make it open source, we give it away, and other people are empowered by it in 75 countries. I mean, this is as big as a home run we've ever hit in our lives. So we're pretty confident on the return on investment of our time because it seems to be diffusing and spreading virally without spending a lot of time. So we're happy that way. Other questions? We've got another 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am, in the front. Where's the mic? There's the mic.
Thank you, Linda Carton, in the team of Gustavo from Nijmegen.
All right, with the geography, the spatial.
The geography spatial.
Yeah,
we would
fantastic.
love to take some 5 minutes of your time afterwards. Our Nijmegen city will be green capital in 2018. So about symbolic functions, we know it's very important. We develop tools, my colleague here. Chico has developed a tool for mayors, for the global governance of mayors. What could mayors do on a local level? So we're developing games tools to engage people. And we asked you, do you have a forum, a conference, or a journal that you go to and you gather with other scientists? Because we came to this side event because of the name. Oh, wow, using tools for decision makers on climate change, education. This is where we want to be. And I'm wondering if we can organize ourselves so that we do have a future connection or event, conference.
And would this be, so the question is there a community and a conference of people using simulations and interactive games and series
build them, use them.
Climate or generally?
Exactly.
On climate.
On climate. And climate education.
How about we come to the Netherlands? How about you guys host it? Because I don't think there is such a thing.
We should host it. Can we talk about this?
Okay. Please host it.
We have Helene, our climate scientist. Is one of the writers of the 1.5 report for IPCC next year.
Great.
So
well, there's communities. There is a whole community that I know of that we haven't participated in called Serious Games.
We are in there.
Okay,
yeah.
You know those guys.
Yeah.
So there's the Serious Games world. Yeah. There's the modeling world. We go to the System Dynamics Conference,
which was at TU Delft years ago.
And in Delft, there's the modeling world. There's this world, but there isn't simulations for change in climate.
We want to be in there. We want to be in there.
Have some drinks. Okay.
So
organized.
So there is also System Dynamics colleague working at the University.
Etienne Rouet, we know him very well.
Okay, there you go. Right. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
He says hi to you, I guess.
Okay. Oh, right. Thanks.
Are there others with questions or comments? Yeah, in the front, and then in the yellow shirt in the back. Yeah, you're next.
So, given the inertia of the negotiations and the urgency you demonstrate in the game, the question is whether the game might highlight those urgencies with sort of red alarm roofs on some of the charts. Or, I mean, it seems that we're playing games. I mean, while Rome is burning a little bit, and not to diminish the hope, which is so important as you demonstrated, but how do we step this up a little bit and still have a fun game?
How do we step this up and still have a fun game? Yes, Eduardo. Can we pass the mic down to Eduardo? Does anyone have the mic? Oh, yeah, so you'll get it back for the next question.
Maybe meanwhile, until the mic is there.
And then I have a closing pitch that I'd like to make near the end.
Okay, the mic is there, so
Yeah, and
Eduardo.
then but
Hi.
yeah.
Hi. Oh, okay. Well, when the game ends, we separate people into four categories. The people who are afraid, people who are angry, people who feel depressed, and people who are glad or I don't know the word in English. It's alegre in Español. Is happy. People who are happy. And you find those people and you really get people moving, because when people take are conscious of the urgency to do things, they start doing things. It's incredible, but people start acting, and you take all those anger and all those depression and fears, and you convert it into action, into energy, and it happens. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. The lady, yeah, in the yellow. If you could pass that over to, yeah. We'll have this as the last question, and then I have a short, hopeful summary. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm Veronica Brand. I'm a religious NGO representative at the UN, and I have not heard of this, and I'm delighted because I know the power of simulation games to really touch people. My question is, have you tried using it with kind of almost, and I don't know what your facilitator's guide is, but with questions that would be geared to different groups? You know, I could see parliamentarians discussing possible policies and saying, let's look at the result of this.
Yeah.
I can see in, ethics or faith-based groups, people questioning, look at the difference if we do this or we do this. Where does justice come in?
Oh, yes.
What is this? What is the impact of this morally? I could see different accompanying questions to be used in different circumstances. And I don't know if you've done any of that.
Thank you very much. What an excellent question. And at its best, this experience is the first 20% of a real experience on this topic. It sets things up for a good facilitator and the context of a purpose that is different from just the negotiations. So there are extensive networks in the United States there's a Creation Care Alliance. There's a group of camps for young people that have a focused day on climate that are specifically Christian. And we gave them the game. They set it up as, you saw people on the floor, rich people, play the game. And then you say, you talk about justice. You talk about all the principles of really any world religion. And so it is a doorway into a deeper conversation where people had their eyes opened a little bit more, and they're willing to talk about really some very difficult conversations about fairness, justice, rights, and hope and possibility. So, but when you say that, I'll ask you, would you write Appendix C for our facilitator guide? Because all the appendixes, how to do it for kids, how to do this for a parliamentarian, now how to do it in a faith-based setting. Here are some tips from someone who's tried it. Anything you would add about? Okay, great. And on that spirit, this brings us down into some of the difficult truths of how the world is right now. And I want to, and this is what has to happen with every game. At some point, you face the reality and you say, oh my gosh, we have such hard work to do. And then I want to say to you now that I am hopeful. I won't say optimistic about it. Hopeful means every day I get up and I say, we can make something great happen. Optimistic would be, oh, we've got this figured out. Hope is a choice, but I need evidence for my choice. And here's some of the evidence of why I can remain hopeful and not naive, hopeful and not crazy. You saw the United States is saying they're pulling out. I'm from the United States, they're pulling out of this agreement. The cities in the states are responding. You saw that igloo over there of cities and states saying, we are still in. We did some of the analysis, and about half of the population of the United States is covered by someone who says, we are still in. Half of that,
Can I just add?
Yeah,
If
go ahead.
you don't mind. So in the game that I played last night, I had a lobbying group, just as the Americans here in the Igloo, representing the U.S. states and cities. And in the debrief, these three people stood in the area of, I felt happy because I am seeing hope that we are doing something and we get into action. So this small remark on this.
Yeah. Reason number 9. These are my 10 reasons for hope. Reason number 9 is emissions, as you probably heard, may have peaked. They have at least flattened. This is a graph of emissions going back over a century. You can see that last 3 years, they have been flat. In the United States, there is something called the Climate Solutions Caucus. Republicans and Democrats, every time you join, there has to be a Republican and a Democrat together joining to advocate for a carbon price in the United States. And there have been Republicans who are asking for it. Carbon price around the world. There are 40 national and 24 subnational jurisdictions calling for a price on carbon. China is where the strongest leadership is. The next is that the prices for wind and solar are in the middle of going down a strong learning curve. This is a feedback loop, a reinforcing feedback loop where the price of energy has been falling, something like 80% in the last 10 years. Demand goes up, economies of scale goes up, costs go down, price goes down even more. This is a reinforcing loop that is moving along very quickly right now. China, the production and consumption of coal has peaked and is falling. It may go up again, but at least in the last few years has fallen. This gives me hope. Actually, this doesn't give me hope. I choose hope. This gives me evidence that I'm not crazy to be hopeful. Hope is a choice, not an assessment. Hope is a choice that we make every day. This gives me the possibility, gives me evidence. I love the Paris Agreement. That's why I'm here. It is still a powerful force. The other is this idea of multi-solving. Google this word. We have a team here at Climate Interactive that is quantifying the health impacts. Who is from the medical? Is that, yeah, so you're from the medical group. So there are medical impacts, health, respiratory disease, et cetera, from taking action on climate. We don't burn coal. There aren't SOx and NOx in the air. Surface ozone improves, but also water, energy, local jobs, local communities, all of these different petals on this flower. And we find at the local level, talking about it in this way, food and water, jobs and assets, health, connection, energy, resilience are the petals. In the middle, climate protection. Multi-solving is a powerful way to think about the whole system impacts. The other is that system social change looks impossible until it is completed. All of these graphs go all the way back to the 1700s, and they are the countries, the states in the United States that adopt amendments. See this long green line? It has been growing over time. States adopting the ability for interracial marriage. State by state, one at a time, black people can marry white people in the United States until in the 1950s. Do you see how steep it is right there? Boom. Suddenly it happens. It feels like it's so slow until suddenly it happens. Same with over here with women voting. Same with legalization of same-sex marriage. Right now with use of recreational marijuana. It looks impossible until it happens. The other is the divestment movement. What folks here was talking about, keeping coal, oil, and gas in the ground. But the biggest, I think, is the movement to reach out between groups and interests. In the United States, it was Standing Rock, where we had Native Americans leading the way with no single leader, no tall white guy who looks like me at the front saying, we've got this figured out. It was a wide group of Native American people who were leading this strong effort to keep coal, oil, and gas in the ground. And it focuses on the people who sat on the ground before. Those people, 810 million people who don't have enough food every day. The vulnerable. In the United States, it looked like this in Katrina. It looked like this with refugees. Remember this picture of this boy. It looks like this was sea level rise, with people who are moving and suffering because of this issue. Folks, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. Go get them. We'd love to talk to any of you outside, but everyone please stand up and get right out of the room so those guys can get in and do the next talk. So everyone leave now. We're going to leave as well. And thank you to the AV guy in the back. Thank you, sir, for handling all this.
We have next meeting in 25 minutes.
Great. If you'd like to talk to us, we'll see you out there.
Can we have one picture sending us with this?
Do it outside, man. Let's do it outside. Yeah. But they need to.
Can you take a picture of us here? It would be nice.
Okay.
Can you take a picture of us here? So we are.
The three of us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, no, with the two. Oh, yeah. Or with your camera. You have a nice camera. That's okay.
But this way we know we have the picture.
Yeah. Yes.
Kenneth, you should join us. Yeah. The Abibiman.
It was a nice session, guys.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Climate change.
All right. Thanks. Excellent.
Thank you. I can send you these.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. All right. We got everything. I didn't take their.
Yes, yeah.